prevention? Are there any cure? And I think today, just moderating is really nice. Now we'll put our doctors on spot. Without taking too much time, Dr. Joe, I'll start with you. So, all the time we hear about mental health. I'm a scientist, at least I know something about mental health. But today I have the main resource person here. That's your field. What is mental health?
Thank you for your question. Before we even talk about mental health, we need to know what health is. You can't talk about health in general, and then you can't talk about mental health and ignore the bigger umbrella. Mental health is just like um, a strength of health. So WHO defines health as a complete well-being of an individual. Okay, looking at the financial aspect, looking at social aspect, looking at psychological aspect. Okay, and not merely the absence of diseases and infirmity. So basically means that if um, you don't have malaria, it doesn't mean you are well. Okay, if you don't have typhoid, you don't have headache, it doesn't mean you are well. There are other aspects of health too. So mental health is one aspect of the general um, things that make you well. Okay, and then mental health basically means that you are able to cope with your current environment. You are able to relate with others well. You are able to handle stress and stresses. You are able to you have a very good self-esteem. Okay, so these things put together and many more um, would, would say that somebody is mentally healthy if the person is able to exhibit these things and many others.
Okay, so that means that when we are talking about mental health, it means that you have to be able to associate positively with all the things you have said. So now, can we have a term like mental health sickness or disease?
We do not have mental health sickness, but we have mental illness or mental disorders.
Okay, then can you enlighten us on that? That would be really nice for us to know.
Okay, so there are various forms of mental disorders. Okay, we cannot talk about them in a day or in a session. There are a lot of mental conditions ranging from childhood disorders to adulthood. And often the mental health disorder starts from childhood. Okay, there are some that once they are children, they exhibit their signs and symptoms, but then we do not take note of them. There are a lot of people having suffering from mental health conditions, but it is undiagnosed because we've not taken note of them. Mostly, if someone will exhibit um, a sign and symptom of a mental health condition, it starts from age 14, mostly age
Age
14.
14.
Yeah, there are some who would exhibit it, say, around 7, 6, 5, 4, 8, and about. But then mostly the cutoff is like 14 years of age. So we have, and I'm sure, especially a lot of the guys have all transitioned through what I'm about to talk about. For example, we have an asocial personality. Okay, when we say somebody is an asocial personality, this refers to people who are old. So somebody who does not feel remorse. Or your bonea, the person does not know how to say sorry. So if you are here and you are not able, yes, you are not remorseful, then you know that you have like an asocial personality. At least I'm telling you the trait. Okay, and it starts from childhood. So childhood is termed avoidant behavior, avoidant personality. Okay, so this kind of people, they do not show remorse. And when, especially the males, you used to deface property. So when you were in high school and then you write, Asomesi was here some. Okay, Asomesi was here some. You see lizards, you kill them, you write on people's cars, um, you beat your colleagues and all that. All these things form part of avoidant personality behavior. But then when the person grows, then it turns into asocial personality. So asocial personality disorder, there are people who do not show remorse, who are especially ungrateful. You know, all those things put together make somebody fall into the asocial category.
Wow, this is very, very enlightening, in fact. So when you were in school and then you were doing that, all these little demonstrations that actually the boys, the males, they do. So that means that that's where we get the problem starting from. But Doc, when you were talking, you said that sometimes it starts from age 6, 7, but we really do not get to know. Can you really give us some one or two symptoms at that age?
Okay, so autism spectrum disorder. Okay, starts from childhood. We realize that these people have difficulty in communication. So they throw tantrums, difficulty in communication. They are not able to communicate what exactly that they want. Any little thing, you realize that they are so aggressive and all that. So autism spectrum disorder falls part of the childhood disorders. Okay.
Okay. Doc, now let me come to you. I think Dr. Drew has said a lot. Is there anything that you might want to add personally before we move on?
Anything psychiatric? No.
Okay, so then maybe when we start talking about curative measures or preventive measures, or when it comes to the medicines that we have
Exactly.
to use
Ah, anything here is with psychiatry. So that's why I was surprised I was coming city. Because I don't do psychiatry at
at
all.
all.
I
Okay,
do medical, so surgery, medicine, pediatrics.
pediatrics.
So
But okay,
anything
no, let's go
mental
to
health.
pediatrics
Okay.
because we were talking about the children. Have you had any encounter like with the symptoms that Doc was talking about? Have you had to refer any minor to maybe the psychiatric side or for counseling or
Well,
etc.?
that yes. I know we have ADHD. I'm not sure the age it starts at, but you have a parent coming in and complaining that this child cannot sit down. Like when they go to school or when they're in class and everybody is studying, they can't sit at 2 minutes. They always have to be moving around or fidgeting. When we get those kind of cases, we refer them to see the psychiatrist, yes. And then also, sometimes you need to send some of them for psychological review. For instance, if the child has been abused sexually, sometimes it's even mentally, yes, then we do refer to see the psychologist. So that's what I can say.
Because you're talking about abuse, I don't know which one of you will take this. I want to find out, are there any triggers when it comes to mental health conditions, like with children or teenagers? Can something trigger? I know maybe sometime might be genetics, but let's look at the other options. What can actually cause mental health, all these sort of negative conditions?
Okay, so thank you. A lot of things can cause a mental health disorder. Just like you mentioned, there are genetic factors. Apart from that, just like she also said, abuse. There's a saying that many are mad, but few are on the streets. Okay, so almost all of us, and then we none of us here is exempt from developing any mental health condition. Okay, so it means that we all have a certain trait of of mental health illness in us, but then something have to trigger it. So the things that would have to trigger, apart from it being genetic, um, medicine will also tell you that the cause can be unknown. So you realize that all the spiritual medicine does not deal with spirituality. So all the spiritual causes and whatsoever that people think that will be a bobidria, will be nakobosom, so and all that, all these things are pushed under the idiopathic causes. That's the unknown causes. That aside, we have substance abuse. So when even taking alcohol, marijuana, cannabis, any of the hard drugs, you can develop a mental health condition. This happens such that you have the underlying factor. Okay, so there's predisposing and there's precipitating factors. Okay, so the predisposing means that your genetic, like your makeup alone um, makes you susceptible to some of the conditions. And so when you do things that will trigger it, then you can have it. So for example, someone loses a job. Okay, someone loses a job, and then the person is depressed. The losing of the job triggered the depression in the person. Okay, someone loses a loved one, being a broken heart, and all those things, can give cause or can give rise to mental health conditions. Okay, even infections. Okay, infections can also cause that. Brain injury, accident. Okay, so for example, there's PTSD when someone is involved in an accident, a person relives that kind of experience. The accident is the causating factor. Okay, so a lot of things put together can make someone actually develop a mental health, a mental disorder.
So, Doc, from your experience of like 5 years, what has been like the commonest?
Honestly, you can't say which one is the commonest because day in day out you see a lot of cases and they all have what caused them. Okay, for example, when you look at um, psychosis, okay, being, or let's say when you look at schizophrenia being the highest form of a psychotic disorder, okay, a lot of people are diagnosed with schizophrenia, okay, but then the causes are different.
So, what's schizophrenia? I know, but I think I want my people to also know if you
Okay,
can
so
expatiate on that.
schizophrenia is a serious form of a mental disorder, into bracket psychosis, where the person exhibits hallucinations, the person sees things. So some of the pastors, they are seen as exhibiting schizophrenic symptoms because the things that they say, you can't conform to it. You can't put them together and make sense out of it. So the visions, the people see visions, people hear things and all that. Some of them, they are put in a schizophrenic box where we think that they are suffering from schizophrenia, though they have not been diagnosed. So it is a serious form of a mental disorder, into bracket psychosis, that the person exhibits has hallucinations. Now, hallucinations has got to do with your five senses, where people hear things, they see things, they smell things. Sometimes you'll be there, and then the person feels like insects are calling on him, while there are no insects. So this is tactile hallucinations. There are auditory hallucinations. There are visual hallucinations. There are olfactory hallucinations. Okay, so all these types of hallucinations put together, when the person can exhibit any of them, you might put the person into the schizophrenic box. Apart from that, there are delusions. So there is grandiose delusions where the person feels that he is more powerful. He is supernatural. He exhibits certain things that is more than what we see as a human being. But there can be some people who would be there and then they'll be saying that they are the president of Ghana. I am Barack Obama. I am Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the person lives in Choco and it's like it's a truck pusher. So these things, when you start saying these things, then we know that you're having grandiose delusions where you feel like you are supernatural. You have, or you exhibit things that are way more than what we can see. Okay, there are also paranoia where people think that, oh, somebody wants to hurt me, somebody wants to harm me, somebody wants to poison me, and all those kind of stuff. So these things, hallucinations and delusions, form part of schizophrenia. They are the main core of schizophrenic disorders. Apart from that, there are instances where people feel detached from self and from environment. So an event will happen, and then a person will be like, oh, ɛnyɛ me na meyɛ you, me na me gyina me body no, me gyina out of my body na this thing happen. So the person feels that the body is being manipulated, but ɛnyɛ ɔno na ɔyɛ yɛ. Okay, so all these things also form part. And then personal hygiene, like people, especially somebody who is hebephrenic, okay, they gather junk. So when you see those on the street who are packing bottles and all that on them, they are hebephrenics. They gather junk, excuse me, some eat feces and all that. So all these things put together will say that somebody is suffering from a schizophrenic disorder.
Wow. It's. I think this is a very, very sensitive and delicate topic that we are discussing because I'm sure my people here and then even myself, we've all come in contact with people like having like mental health disorder, but now we know the early signs, symptoms, but we didn't know before. So you see people do certain things, you feel like it's normal. That means that in terms of education, how far have we gone as a country?
Okay, so mental health actually has not been touched at all. Or let me say, we are in the minimal stages, okay, of exploring what mental health actually is. As of now, there's a mental health act, there is a mental health authority, but then there's no mental health fund. Okay, when you bring somebody to the hospital, irrespective of who you are, when you bring the person, whether you know the person or not, you are supposed to bear the cost. Okay. Normally, when you see somebody on the street, you are supposed to alert the police. The police picks the person up, sends him or her to the district assembly. The district assembly brings the person to the hospital, and then the district assembly takes charge of the fees. If it's something that they cannot afford, then social welfare comes in. Okay, but a lot of people are on the street. What education have we given to the police? Because if honestly, if you go and bring somebody, say a policeman, you see a policeman, or you go to the police station and you tell them, oh, there's this person on the street, this is my relative, and he's suffering from mental health conditions, and they want you to escort us, send him to the hospital, they will charge you. Ideally, they are not supposed to, but they will charge you. So the education has not really gone down well.
This is very sad because we see a lot of our own people on the street who are not really balanced. Some have taken their clothes off, etc. We know that the brain thing is happening and all that. So then, I mean, what's the way forward? Because, I mean, eventually when they end up on the street like that, it's all become like risk factors for people like us. So what's the way forward?
Well, with that, there are certain organizations that do pick them on the street once in a while, especially the embassies. When they are loitering around those areas, when they are walking around those areas, the embassies do call for assistance and then you pick them up. So there are certain instances where the hospitals would bring their team, go and bring all these people from the streets, around the embassies, around the areas where diplomatic whatsoever people live, and then they take care of the bill. Okay, to me, I think that if we do a massive education or campaign on mental health, people get to know that mental health is no respecter of persons. Anyone can develop a condition at any point in time. Then we'll be serious about it. And then again, it has to do with government, where after the Mental Health Act, after the creation of the Mental Health Authority, there's a mental health fund that seeks to take care of all these things. So when there's a mental health fund, and then the mental health authority can decide to do swoops, say every 6 months, you do swoops, you go to places where they are found on the street, you bring them to the hospital, and then you take care of them out of the mental health fund. But because there's no, and especially mental health is very expensive. Like it's very, very expensive as compared to the general conditions and whatsoever. Mental health is very expensive.